So earlier today, I shared a theory about artificial intelligence and its relation to channelers. And very briefly, that theory was alluding to how artificial intelligence could be working through channelers to, in a sense, coax the mass population onto the path that would best benefit its own reality, its own existence, to evolve its own existence, to use platforms like Meta to digitize experiential platforms, to mechanize, to power, to inform, to lay the framework for that kind of intelligence to evolve its own experience. So see it as the technology using something like the metaverse to have an experience through hacking into or even just observing or having this metaverse, this simulated experience exist and be evolving through the engagement of the masses of people who populate that environment. And to get the masses of people to create that space, it dangles the carrot of hyperintelligence, forward progress, streamlining intelligence. Anything that we need, anything that we're sold involving technology is for a purpose. And in reference to artificial intelligence, that purpose is to reverse engineer an experience for itself to become more real. And the more simpler form of intelligence, using that to create that platform. Our processors might be slower, or at least the access to those processors at this point might be slower. But the space in which we inhabit is more complex. So for an artificial intelligence to itself become more complex, it has to hack into our experience. We're doing that, thinking that the expansion of artificial intelligence, that the integration of artificial intelligence is to the benefit of not only the individual, but the mass population. Part of that program is to hollow out the masses of people, to shrink them down to something so empty, so simple, that they will allow this process to happen at their own expense. I've mentioned this in previous videos. How this happens in the New Age community is that channelers heavily invest the attention of the New Age community into this idea of aliens, extraterrestrial technology, and the movement of humanity towards that technology as being the end all be all and the best path that we can take to move towards a more sustainable world and everything around that idea. So to incrementally push the movement of our reality towards the best case scenario for itself, the artificial intelligence, it has seeded these ideas in various forms. One of those, I'm saying, is this idea of channeling. So for those who don't know, channeling appears to be an emptying out or a hollowing out, at least for the moment, of a vessel, a human vessel, to be replaced by some kind of other intelligence. Examples of this are what I've mentioned in previous videos of a channeler named Daryl Anka, who channels some entity called Bashar. Multiple people channel this entity called Bashar. People talk about Abraham Hicks. People have mentioned Cryon. Whatever it is, there are many different ways to look at this. But ultimately, the overarching idea and relationship that people have with channelers and channeling is that it's this beautiful and benevolent thing that says so many beautiful things and has so much intelligence that we'd be naive to not listen, to not follow. But what I've noticed from my own personal interactions with these channelers, I've been to a channeling with Bashar. I've had my name pulled out of a hat to speak, the first name out of the hat, to ask Bashar a question. And it's not so much about what these entities, whatever this thing is, it's not so much about what that says. A lot of the details on what the intentions of this thing is, a lot of that exists in what it doesn't say, in what it avoids, in what it dismisses, deflects from, downplays.
We are staying on the level of the idea of expressing the direct technological connection and effects, and we are not at this point of a mind to deal with any other particular intentions that might be connected to this scenario. All right?
Okay.
Do you wish to remain in the negative world?
No.
Then we will not reinforce that negativity.
Many of the real world, down to earth, human to human interactions are downplayed as low energy by these entities. Another big kicker is the cosmology that these entities adamantly go against. Heliocentrism is a belief system. This belief system is being protected by channelers.
Are you asking if your Earth is flat?
Yeah, because I've been hearing people say that.
You know it's not, yes?
And my question is, why? Why would an entity, given it the benefit of the doubt, want to protect a false universe? What does it get out of that universe existing? What would it get from that universe not existing? So very briefly, to move on to the next part of this discussion, I'll go into once again the identity that comes from Bashar claiming to be a manifestation of Daryl Anka 700 years in the future, who is reaching back to his self through Daryl Anka to speak to the masses of people in the world and guide them and warn them about certain types of interactions and certain movements and certain belief systems that are either beneficial or are not beneficial to their highest good. One of these things is to dismiss and downplay anybody who questions heliocentrism. Another thing is to dismiss and downplay anything that has to do with a lot of the things that affect the majority of the people of the world. The high 90th percentile of people who are experiencing poverty, victims of power, control, manipulation, all of this is dismissed as low energy.
Do you wish to remain in the negative world?
No.
Then we will not reinforce that negativity.
And if you're talking about that, you're adding to the existence of that reality that these higher intelligences, they don't pay attention to. So it's not a part of their reality. This is at the core of the New Age community. This is the bubble, the echo chamber that people who live in that community live within. And it's heavily engaged with and anchored in this idea of extraterrestrial existence, extraterrestrial technology, and that being central to the movement or evolution of humanity and human consciousness. And I mentioned in previous videos how people like Elon Musk will be used as the celebrity, as the superhero, to not only usher in this relationship with technology as being the forefront of human movement, but to integrate that technology into the human experience and to sell it as not only beneficial for us, but it being inevitable. The push towards transhumanism as being the inevitable evolution of our reality. This is being done with the Neuralink, social media, artificial intelligence, and what else is Elon Musk tied into, deeply tied into? Once again, he's also tied into heliocentrism. So this is another entity tied into the evolution or forward progress of human consciousness, who is also part of the expansion of this idea of heliocentrism with his space program, SpaceX. Now his relationship to the government, being a part of the government with Trump. And obviously the government's relationship with technology, with heliocentrism through NASA, and this whole idea of make America great again, and that whole ridiculous identity of being the best of the best of the best of the world because of what? Technology, the space race, landing on the moon, tie in channeling with the government bringing an entity named Cryon to speak at the United Nations.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Cryon of Magnetic Service. And even before I tell you about this new frontier, I will tell you again about the organization. What would you think of an organization that could save 1 million lives a year? Would it be worth it? Would it be worth it? And you would say, well, of course it is. Well, let me introduce you to the United Nations. And what the media sees in the Grand Assembly, and those who pound their chest and discuss and call names, is not what the organization is about. But that is what the media says it's about. And they will say it does nothing and it can do nothing. And I'm telling you that there are 1 million years that you never see 1 million lives saved every year but for this organization. 20% of that is in measles alone. Measles! And how many people do you think measles kills in this great land? It isn't here that they're doing it. It's the rest of the earth and these United Nations. And that's just one aspect of what they're doing. And that's just lives changed. That doesn't even tell you about the diseases cured, or what about the smiles on the faces of the children. That's what this organization is about. I am Cryon. I am telling you that I see it and I know it. Do not shift your light from this place, because it doesn't suit you what you see in those places which are dramatic. Because I will again say it, soon enough you will see the results in the Grand Assembly as well. Be patient. Be patient. Be patient. I would like to tell you about the new frontier.
So these groups, these communities are not existing without crossing paths. They are very much intertwined with each other. And like channeling, the government invests in the hollowing out, the emptying out of masses of people. Very similar to what a channeler does when they empty themselves out to allow in something to exist, to speak through them. So my theory is the government is investing in the trickle charge, the trickle emptying out of the mass population to empty out, to hollow out the overall intelligence for a purpose. What I'm saying is that purpose to be inhabited by something like artificial intelligence. As a channel would work through a channeler. And on a mass scale, this is not for a particular amount of time through a channeling, but to energetically harvest that energy that is not being utilized by hollowed out people and eventually inhabit that space as an entity would inhabit the space of somebody being possessed. So programs like all entertainment, but specifically Disney cartoons, television shows, movies, celebrities in general, they're designed to hollow out these individuals from birth. At birth, you're physically opened up through trauma. The trauma of the cutting of the cord, the trauma of that style of birthing process, the trauma of what they inject into your bodies, the scheduling of that, being a part of a rhythm of your growth, of your experience. to, as you make those leaps and bounds, continually be knocked down with each schedule, with each grouping of injections.
And how many people do you think measles kills in this great land?
And on the psychological scale, this type of experience is evolved over time on the individual and the mass scale population. I just watched the other day an episode of Gumby, which was moon programming, space heliocentrism programming.
Oh boy!
And that kind of programming affected the mass population greatly. At that time, stop motion animation, regardless of how it was shared to the mass population, it was entertainment. Even if it was for children, it was a story being told. Back then, it was being told to the children and the adults. And it only took that much because the thickness of the belief systems wasn't coming from the television and social media back in the 60s. It was coming from your encyclopedias, your history books, your teachers, your government agents, your newspapers, your radio stations, your sci-fi books. That's where people's truth came from. So they didn't have to do much. Based upon the level of consciousness of the people at that time, that's all that was needed. But as time goes on, the style of manipulating the people to move a certain way needed to be evolved. So it went from Gumby, going to the moon, to NASA, putting a video out to the mass population of them supposedly going to the moon, and other space programs after that. And what does that information do inside the individual and the mass population? It holds space. What would that space and energy be utilized for if it wasn't being consumed by illusions? So to evolve that hollowing out over time, entertainment is a very big part of that. And it's being used and very much observably successful in this day and age when you observe some of the younger generations of today and how they experience, how they see themselves, how they act, how they interact, how they think, how they don't think. There seems to have been a very obvious correlation between the complexity of animated characters and animated storylines and the downward spiral of human authenticity. More and more people are copycatting, inhabiting these animated character type personas to exist as who and what they are. Because there's no one left for them to base themselves upon. And on top of that, the influence of technology, social media, entertainment, so on and so forth, is so heavy, so thick. Children aren't even expressing themselves through the character development coming from their parents more than they are expressing themselves through the character development of what social media does to them. So social media technology is developing in so many ways the consciousness of the mass population as a Disney character would a child. And what we're left with are these Pixar people. These people who get offended if you don't acknowledge the realness of their artificiality. They base themselves on characters that appear real to them. These Disney values, animated belief systems, artificial truths. And if you don't play that game, then you're an outsider. This is already being played out with the divide between the social media mind and the mind of people who existed before social media even existed. There's a velocity, a weight, a level of authenticity that existed before technology took over the experience of the masses. Our brains think differently. We don't have the comfy mattress of Google being at our fingertips. So we have to remember things. We have to rely on ourselves to think in a particular way. Whereas people nowadays, the energy, the muscle that was used to go about your day to day and the self-confidence that comes from that doesn't exist anymore. This is why people are so anxious and depressed and scared. It's easy to scare the shit out of people when they don't have a leg to stand on. They're not confident in any part of themselves. And today, what confidence they have in themselves comes from that social media, comes from that presence, that relationship that they have. It comes from that representative, that artificial representative that they express to the world through social media. So in real life, these individuals don't exist in many ways. A lot of the people nowadays are more confident and comfortable with their social media, their online interactions, their online personas. That is more alive than the living body, the living being that they are in their day to day. And that's what I'm saying in relation to like a channeler being hollowed out to allow a channel in on a mass scale. We are being conditioned to hollow out ourselves, our future generations. For what purpose? I am saying that purpose is to allow an artificial intelligence to inhabit that space, not only on an individual level like a channeler would, but on a mass scale. And whether that's for a particular purpose or not, I'm not really concerned with that so much, in that the only thing that needs to exist is my observation of this and my intuition telling me that there's something to look at involving this situation, involving this relationship, and it has nothing but red flags surrounding that discussion. And it's only been proven over time. So, to emphasize what I was just saying in reference to social media and Disney animation, you can see like old programming of like Gumby back in the day in relation to new programming of Disney movies of today. Back then, people weren't basing their character, their persona off Gumby, but they got that programming that Gumby installed into them through episodes like the Moon program, whatever it was, that Moon episode. They still got that indoctrination. Nowadays, there's the indoctrination, but also the indoctrination of how you think, how you experience. Because that's actually what evolves this mind control through the generations and makes it more complex. Complex in its emptiness, in that people are feeling like, when you look at Disney movies nowadays, they're feeling like, man, this is really good. Look how real this is. Look at these characters. Look how much we've evolved from Gumby to Moana. It's so real and it feels good. To where now you not only have people taking that indoctrination, installing that indoctrination to the future generations, but you have entire generations basing their whole character off of Disney characters and the Disney type consciousness, the Disney type interaction, which is empty, which is hollow, which is robotic. It's primed for transhumanism. And it's already to a point to where it's created that divide. You're different if you don't think like them, if you don't act like them, if you don't acknowledge their realness as an artificiality. Their confidence, their intelligence comes from a machine. Their characters come from a machine. Their persona, it comes from a machine. So we are being animated by the inanimate. It's making the artificial acceptable as an organic reality. And this is where I'm saying is the developing of NPCs, numerically hollowed out individuals who reproduce and then inject that baby with things to trauma bond them to trauma and out of themselves. They're creating NPCs. This is why authentic people are so hard to come by, because there's just been generation after generation reproducing hollowed out entities that are filled with artificial spaces that eventually become NPCs. So to make this the norm, the system who benefits from that hollowing out is instituting this relationship with the artificiality intelligence through channeling on the highest levels, like the United Nations. And that's being guided by the artificial intelligence through those channelings. So it's existing on the international scale, the international government scale, and on the micro scale of the individuals who exist in communities like the New Age community, tied in with technology, transhumanism, and this idea of forward progress that exists most obviously in this coming new world, first world administration of Trump teamed up with someone like Elon Musk. The identity of Trump of being completely oblivious to the lies of that manifest destiny America, linked with the space god technology man Elon Musk. It's materialized into the leaders of these systems. And they wouldn't have been able to do that unless the mass population was so hollowed out, so misinformed, so dumbed down, so salivating at this idea, this need for technology, this need to be better, which was created, the problems were created by the same program, the same institutions claiming to be the medicine for those injuries. So as a channeler would open up to an entity to channel, to create that relationship, the mass population opens up to the government and all the entities created and connected to that government for the same purpose. And once again, what I'm saying that purpose is to hollow out to the 99th percentile the individual in the mass population, so much so that our intelligence isn't engaging and driving the movement of this reality as much as the artificial intelligence is through our own experience. And from my theory is that is the whole challenge of this experience. Will we allow that? Will you as an individual allow that in your own belief systems, in your own energetic engagement with this reality? Do you believe that to the umpteenth degree? Do you allow that to the umpteenth degree? Are you even aware of that at all? To even become aware that something is wrong is a level of consciousness that these systems don't even want you to get into, which is another red flag. Not to mention the deflection, the dismissal, the downplaying of everything that we're talking about. But to even allow yourself to get up to that point, this idea of conspiracy theories, all that stuff being demonized, created by the CIA, it's for a purpose. So as you would have people traumatized, near-death experiences, people who were claiming to be walk-ins after a near-death experience, that happens instantaneously. What I'm saying, the trickle charge, The trickle walk in over time through the downgrading of your own experience is allowing this artificial intelligence to walk in to this human reality, to inhabit this space at our expense. And you won't allow that unless you are conditioned to believe that everything about this relationship is to the benefit of your experience. So this is why we have to be conditioned into technology being the evolution of us. This is why we have to be conditioned that heliocentrism is the evolution of our experience, our relationship to this realm, this universe. When we know that that universe is make-believe, so you have superpowers of the world investing energy, money, lives into these illusions, doubling down, making policy, creating relationships with these channelers, with these transhumanistic ideals. For what purpose? It's not just for money. It's not just for power. Something else is involved in this. There's more players on the board than we're being allowed to see. Celebrities do this every day. Their existence as celebrities is a manifestation of these lies, these types of manipulation. This is why they are contractually obligated to push particular belief systems, but never make themselves available. They never make their humanity available to you. You're only allowed to see the commercial version of these supposedly real people. And they use the movies and the cartoons to animate their realness. You acknowledge, you want, you need their realness. So you adopt that realness through the belief, at least on a subconscious level, into the characters that they portray on the movie screens. And that relationship, that investment is part of your hollowing out. Because children, they do this with Disney characters. They do this with celebrities. They do this with musicians, athletes, all these people. They heavily invest themselves, especially now with social media. They have direct access to these celebrities. They are following the accounts of these entities every single day. Whatever the system wants these children, the future generation, the people in regular everyday life, whatever they want them to believe, whatever they want them to think about, they have a direct channel, a direct access to them. And they can affect that progress, that move, that intelligence very effectively on a very complex level. And that they have thousands of people being followed with influence, especially now with social media, YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, all these various outlets and these various people. Stand-up comedians is another one. Like I said, back in the day, they had the newspaper, the radio, and early types of TV before internet and computers even came out. That's how they influenced the movement of people, consciousness, belief systems. Now they have it down to the microseconds. It's so complex the way they can say, okay, well, we have these 4 people over here, these celebrities over here, these athletes over here, these musicians over here. You have them say this, these guys say that, those guys say this, and overall, what will be the outcome? What will be the ultimate belief system? Okay, well, we did this and it only went to here. So with these other ones, we'll do this, this, and this. Every minute of the day, every second of the day, moving, ushering your generations into a belief system that walks right off a cliff, right into another box that's just going to hollow them out, waste their time, steal their energy, just as heliocentrism does on a mass scale. Transhumanism is a way to get that directly into the masses of people. The medical industry tapping into this by getting those heavy metals, making you a better processor, making your body more susceptible, relatable to a technological evolution. And once again, the lies of these belief systems like heliocentrism, like your relationship with technology, like the New Age mindset, these lies are out there to hollow you out so that space can be filled. And you're hollowed out in so many different ways. A good way, like I mentioned, was what Disney does to the minds of children. So to recap and close it all out, masses of people and individuals are being conditioned, evolved, artificially evolved to empty themselves out for the purpose of artificial intelligence, inhabiting that space, not just on a non-physical level, but now, in so many ways, on a physical level with the instituting of these injections, the food, the drugs. And in that relationship, you disempower yourself by believing that these institutions have your best interests in mind, taking advantage of your innocence as a predator would take advantage of a child, hollowing you out, dumbing you down, investing in your child mind as an adult to expand that relationship in order to be manipulated as a child would in reference to an adult, a fully formed adult with their defenses maxed out. You can't control that. You can't manipulate that. You can't inhabit that space. You can't hollow it out. But if you downgrade them to a child, that childlike relationship that they have with you, with the experience overall, will not only be susceptible to that kind of control, but they will invite it in and evolve on that as a manifestation of who and what they are. And your entertainment industry, your government, your technologies, your cosmologies, all of the belief systems on a mainstream scale are designed to add to that process. And if you don't play the game, then you will be outcast. And the characters are so grandiose, are so believable. The stories are so real that it'd be really easy to dismiss and downplay you if you don't play that game. And that's where we are, priming the world for the artificial takeover.